All right, this is chapter 13.2, mechanical project 2, gasket. I'm supposed to use the commands like circle, array, trim, and fillet to complete the gasket. Um, Basically, what is a gasket to begin with? Gasket is a soft membrane that would be placed between two flat parts or smooth parts. And the purpose of that gasket would either be either seal something out or seal something in, whether it's oil, water, um, uh, air, any type of fluid or any type of gas, something like that. Gaskets, in terms of an engine, you'd find gaskets all over the place. You'll find valve cover gaskets, oil pan gaskets, head gaskets, just gaskets all over. And like I said, the main purpose of them in terms of an engine would be to seal oil in this case, or antifreeze or gasoline inside the engine to keep it from leaking out. So when you see oil dripping from an engine underneath the car, like a driveway or something like that, it's most likely because that engine gasket, whatever gasket that would be, technically, is probably cracked and it's leaking out. Gaskets can be made from cork; they can be made from synthetic materials. But in this case, this gasket looks like it would be like a gasket for like a pipe, a round pipe. As you look around the perimeter of it, there's 6 holes. Those holes would be the locations where the bolt would pass through. So if you want to seal two pieces of pipe together, how are you going to fuse them together? Well, you're going to have to bolt them together. Where can you bolt them together? You'll bolt them together through those 6 holes, and those gaskets kind of wrap around the holes in that location. As far as how should I tackle this? There's no such thing as a command that would allow you to draw a very specific shape with 6 pump outs like that. But as I said in Project 13.1, mostly everything drawn in AutoCAD is drawn with circles and lines, and a combination of how they interconnect and how you would trim and remove parts and pieces would allow you to build all the shapes that you can kind of think of or draw in AutoCAD. So based off the measurements, based off what it's telling me here, the best way to draw would be to draw the inner circle, which you could think of as like the inside of the pipe, and then the outer circle, which would be like the outside of the pipe. So I'm going to go to the circle command since it tells me with respect to the diameter what those should be. I'm going to do circle diameter, um, and I'll just pick a random location and I'll type in here the inner circle is 3, hit enter, and there is now the inner circle for my gasket. I'm going to go down here to my object snaps, make sure that center is turned on, which it is, and then I'm going to go back here, open up the command again, just touch the edge of the circle. A little plus means the center of the circle. And I'm going to make another one that is concentric to that circle, which basically means they share the same center point. And I'm going to type 4, hit enter, and there's the outer circle. Okay. So this is the inside of the pipe. This is the outside of the pipe. And the gasket kind of matches um, that perimeters. Now that I have that drawn, I'm going to go down here to my object snaps and make sure that quadrants turn on, which it is. Quadrants here turn on, which is good. I'm going to use that. And what I'm going to do is I could draw all 6 pieces individually going around, but that's not the smartest way of doing it. The best way of doing it would be take your time and draw it correctly for one of them, which in this case, I'm going to do the top vertical part here because it's exactly in the middle. It's right dead center at the top, which is where quadrant comes into play. And then I'm going to use the polar array to make copies of it that goes around the outside edge all the way around. So I'm going to take my time and build the top portion of my gasket here. So to do that, it tells me that the inner circle, that would be like the hole that would receive the bolt, has a diameter of 0.5. So center diameter right here at the top. I'm going to type 0.5, hit enter. And now that's the hole to receive my bolt. I mean that the outer circle has a radius of 0.5, so I'll choose center radius. Those two are going to be concentric to one another, so I'll choose the center. Go out, type 0.5 again, which is the radius. And there is the outer portion of my gasket. It does say that there should be a fillet. The radius of that fillet is 0.13. So what I'm going to do now is go to my fillet command. There's fillet. Choose that. I'm going to choose multiple. I'm going to choose radius, and the radius should be 0.13. Enter. And then I'm going to choose one side and choose the other side. And if I zoom in there, notice it shows me what it should look like before I hit click it. When I click it, it'll form a little fillet there. Same thing over here on this side. I'll choose this line and that line and forms a little fillet there, a nice smooth curve. Um, and now, in terms of like gaskets engineering, thinking about it in terms of why even bother putting a gasket in there, anytime you have a sharp point, like a hard transition from like this curve to that curve, there's like a little kind of angled portion there. The sharper the angle, the more prone it is to tearing and ripping. So if this gasket, if you didn't put the fillets in like here, why would it rip? It would rip right here at this corner and cause the gasket to fail prematurely. So by putting a fillet in and giving it a nice smooth curve, you're actually making it stronger and keeping it from failure in the future. All right, now that I have this drawn here, we have to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to select trim. I'm going to come down here to the command line and type all. So I'm going to select the whole thing, select it. All right, I'm going to hit enter again. That'll select everything. And now I'm going to click away things I don't need. I don't need this line. I don't need that line or that line or that line or this one, that one or that one, and this one and this one. So there we go. There's our fillet on either side. And we have our outer part of the gasket. We have our hole pattern for the bolt. I'll hit enter to finish the command. All right, so now I finish that. So that's just the top portion. Now you have 5 more to go around. And like I said, you could draw them around individually, but it'd be silly to do that. I took the time, I drew this one correctly, so I'm going to use that as my version to make a polar array. A polar array is located right here. The one that's shown is a rectangular array in this case. If I hit the little drop down button, it'll give me right here is the polar array. I'll select that. My command side says select the object. So I'm going to come in here. You have to select that circle. You have to select the fillets individually, and then the outer circle of the gasket. All right. So once I select those, I'll hit enter. And then it says specify the base point of where you want the array to take place. Now, polar array means it makes a copy of it and kind of rotates it around a specific point. The center of that rotation is going to be the exact center of my gasket. So I'll click that. And now notice it tells you, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Make sure it's set to 6 and make sure that the fill is 360 degrees. Those are the two things you need to make sure. The angle between them would be, it'll change automatically. So if I change the items to 5, just say, I'm just going to hit 5 and I click, notice that it changed automatically the between angle. I don't have to worry about changing that. So I'm going to hit in here, hit 6 again, make sure it's 360. Make sure associative is turned off. It's not selected, which it isn't in my case, but if this is the first time you're using the polar array command, it may be selected and turned on. And the reason why you want to turn it off is because if it's turned on and I hit the close the array, it'll make copies of it, but it won't allow me to individually edit or change parts of the copied version. So here's with another best way of doing it. If it's turned on, this copied version that I initially made first drives the rest of the other copies. If I turn associated off, it'll make copies of the initial one, but it is separated and it is individual from the rest of the parts. So each one can be changed and altered by itself. I always turn associated off, and in this case, I don't need it. So I'm going to make sure it's turned off. Everything else you don't have to mess with. I'll hit the close array, and now I just make copies of that outer part of my gasket around all 6 times. To clean it up, I'll go back to trim. I'll select everything, hit enter, and then I'm just going to go around and delete the parts I don't need for my gasket. Hit enter to finish the command, and I just finished 13.2 mechanical gasket project 2.